Welcome back. My name is Dr. Markus Roggen. I'm a cannabis chemist. I'm here to answer your questions. How is cannabis grown with no THC or CBD? Does every flower produce pollen or at least cannabis flowers? So these are two questions. One is, how do you grow a cannabis plant without THC or CBD? The question if the cannabis plant expresses THC or CBD depends on the genetics. So through selective breeding, genetic engineering, crossbreeding, you can bring the cannabis plant to a generation or to a genetic base where they express or do not express THC or CBD. The second part of the question, does every flower produce pollen? No. So pollen is basically the plant equivalent of jizz, and they don't. So only the male pollen would do that. And the cannabis flower you smoke are all female plants because the male plants are not that fun. There are cannabis plants that are hermaphrodites, so switter plants. So they are both male and female sexual organs on the same plant. They could, but these are plants you also do not want in your grow. So pollen and actual cannabis production do not mix. Sorry. Cool, thank you. After so many medical questions, finally a chemistry question again. So, how do you check your marijuana or weed to tell if it's still good when you buy it? So, in basically all regulated states and countries where cannabis is sold, it came with regulations of quality control. So cannabis is tested before it is sold. But your question is, how do you tell that the cannabis is still good? So you have a few problems. First problem is that normal cannabis testing leads to the destruction of the material. So you can't test it and consume it. So like you can't have a cake and eat it. So you normally put cannabis in a container like this. It's like a food processor. It totally destroys the cannabis flower into powder, and then you extract it, and then you inject it into a testing instrument, and it's gone. It gives you a result, but it's gone. But you want to check it. So for that, you need a non-destructive analytical method. And luckily, chemistry has a few. So this is an IR instrument. On this one, you shoot a laser beam onto the cannabis flower, and it then can tell you how much THC and CBD is in the flower without destroying it. It will just squash it, right? You have to push it down here. So you have squashed cannabis, but it's still consumable. But you only know the cannabinoid concentration. For terpenes, these methods are not precise enough, and there's definitely no way of looking at the low levels of pesticides that might be of concern. So you have to trust the regulation in your jurisdiction that they test the cannabis correctly before you buy it. Okay, this time I'm getting hard questions. I am 14 years old. Will smoking weed once ruin my developing brain? So, yeah, the more you consume, the worse it is. So the less you consume, the better it is. So how about nothing? I mean, if there's a medical use or a medical need for it, sure. But you're 14. I don't know any place where that would be legal for recreational use. So please don't. Please don't. How long will one hit of weed stay in my system? I have a drug test in 9 days and I'm totally clean. So there's no general rule, there's no exact rule. A good benchmark is that after 14 days, cannabis shouldn't be detectable in the system, but there are exceptions. I know of one case where 10 months later, they still detected it. And then, how do you get your cannabis out of the system, or how could you affect it? So One tip is THC is stored in the fat tissue. So if you are losing weight, your body will also shed THC from those storages. So if you're trying to prepare for your drug test and you're losing weight, then you definitely will pop. Okay. Thanks for watching. I enjoyed your questions. I hope you enjoyed my answers. Let's keep the questions coming.